Welcome to Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 144, otherwise known as Season 8, Episode 4. I'm your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davidson. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing fine. It's just another very gloomy, cloudy, rainy day in California.
It is coming down, and it has not given us enough of a break for the dogs to go out to do their thing. So I'm a little afraid that we might have accidents in the house, but that's my problem, not anybody else's. Also with us, as always, is your other host, John Correa. How you doing, Correa?
Doing great. And sorry for making the Greta joke. Greta leaving purses all over. Jay's new dog is named Greta, so I had to make a reference to the movie.
Yeah, and the purses are huge. What's been going on? The big new release this week that I did see, and have either of you guys seen Novocaine?
No.
I saw it. Well, they had preview screenings of it last weekend, and I saw it Monday, so I was actually a little late to the party on it. But this is the Jack Quaid movie that is he plays a character. It's actually, I love the gimmick. He is Nathan Kane, and he doesn't feel pain, so his nickname is Novacaine. And it's a real condition, something where your pain receptors get blocked or something. But anyway, he can't feel pain. So he's a assistant bank manager, and one of his tellers, who he's kind of has a crush on, actually jokes. She's like, "You're a superhero," and she's played by Amber Midthunder from Prey.
Love her.
But there's a robbery at his bank, and of course he gets the shit beat out of him, and but he didn't feel it. But he does get knocked unconscious, and when he wakes up, she has been taken as a hostage so that these robbers can get away from the police. And of course, because he likes her, he makes it his mission to go after and rescue her. He even says several times, "I don't care about the money. You can keep all the money you got. I just want, her name's Sherry, so I just want Sherry back." And this movie is, I wish it was more fun, honestly, because there's a lot of humor in it that mainly derives from him not being able to feel pain. Like, these guys are beating the shit out of him, not realizing that he can't feel it. And there's one scene, which is actually in the trailer, where he's being tortured. And he's using it to buy time because, the guy is going to kill him, but he figures out a way to make the guy torture him first so that he doesn't kill him right away. And he's like doing all these things. So how's that feel? And he's acting like it hurts, but he doesn't know what pain feels like. He's like, oh, no, don't do that anymore. Oh. And it's like the worst acting on it. But so there's some humor like that, but other than that, it just kind of, and by the third act, it just evolves into like a, rock'em sock'em punch out. So you're like, I wish that they had I wish that they had made it more fun. I wish I wanted the beekeeper, and, you got more like Taken, so.
Well, you have The Working Man coming out soon, so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm expecting the same thing from that, but for different reasons. The fun thing, there are a couple of fun things about Novocaine that are cool. Is one, it was filmed in San Diego, so I got to see, like, it basically, there's a lot of cool stuff that I recognize being down here, and they made some jokes about the Chargers and the Clippers and the Padres, and so it's kind of funny. But the other fun thing is they showed it to the press in 4DX, which the only thing I'd seen at this point in 4DX was Godzilla King of the Monsters. And Godzilla King of the Monsters was an awesome movie for 4DX because not only did the seats move, but it used like the wind and the rain and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Novocaine wasn't really the right movie for 4DX because, it was kind of fun during the car chases. It felt like you were in the car, but they were like using it during the fight scenes and trying to, like, throw you around, and it was kind of distracting. And there's one scene where the guy's at a bar and a guy comes up behind him and taps him on the back. And of course it hits the back of your seat and you're like, what the fuck was that? It's like you think someone's kicking your seat is what, but there is one cool part where he shoots a guy in the head and the little spray thing hits you. So you feel like you got his blood. That was probably the coolest thing about the 4DX. But Yeah, it was 4DX.
Hey, not all 4DX experiences can feel like the alien encounter at Disneyland in the 90s. I mean,
Extraterrestrial.
yeah.
Or Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah, that was a fun one too.
Alien was better. Oh, actually, I didn't even mean to do this, but speaking of 4DX movies, there's been this hole in my Joe Dante filmography viewing that I finally filled this past week. I tracked down, it was watermarked as shit, but I've tracked down a copy of Joe Dante's Haunted Lighthouse 4D.
Yeah, the R.L. Stein thing. They showed that at Disneyland or at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
We were discussing that at Novocaine because I could have sworn Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was at SeaWorld. We didn't make a bet, but I lost that argument because Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was Disneyland and the SeaWorld one I saw was a Haunted Lighthouse. Yeah.
That was such a weird movie. It's directed by Joe Dante, written by R.L. Stein, as he said. It's got Christopher Lloyd as like the kind of harbinger, like seaman there. Leah Thompson and Michael McKean play the two parent ghosts, and then there's these two kid ghosts, and one of them's like the kid actress who was, I think she was Samara and Lilo and Stitch. I don't know. It was just like a stacked cast. You got Joe Dante. It's super over the top. There's like weird, very Joe Dante bits where like the kid ghosts are like, "Can't you tell we're ghosts?" And the kid like takes off his head and it like floats forward. It was really weird, but like, you know, it was a story about this, you know, these family, their boat is going to crash into the thing, so the kids hide in the lighthouse, and the parents die, and then the kids get taken by a wave, and so they're haunting the thing, and they just want to be reunited with their parents. But it ends with the most random bit, like the ghosts become a like tourist attraction after, because it's a happy ending, and then like the ghost boy is like dancing in the background, but he's like green screened into dancing in the background, and it's the most random. And I had this like moment where I thought I was high because like it was happening, and Lindsay had no reaction to this, and before I could say, "Do you see that kid dancing there?" Weird Al shows up as the waiter, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then all of a sudden they green screen this kid doing the most random dance, but like sideways on like the right side of the thing, like parallel. And I was just like, what the fuck just happened? And then it goes to the end. So yeah, I can't believe I'm saying, I wish I had gone to SeaWorld and seen this in 4DX. It got replaced with the Pirates thing. Yeah.
If you had 3D glasses on and we're seeing it, you know, with the 4DX, it would have made a little more sense. But yeah.
Not seeing it on YouTube with a watermark in like 320.
Yeah. But that watermark is probably in 3D too if you had the glass. No.
Maybe. But yeah, that was a weird one. That was like, all right, cool. Now I can check that off on my Joe Dante filmography. Now I just got to find, the Film Orgy, a screening of that somewhere. When I have 3 hours to spare.
Oh, jeez.
Options.
Yeah, no, but I love watching ride videos that were used to be in there. Shrek 3D was a favorite of mine as a kid, so like used to watch that DVD all the time. And then the other weird one that I watched and discovered recently was this. It was a public safety video meant to teach British children not to play around farm equipment. It's called Apaches.
Yes, Apaches. I love Apaches.
Yeah, it's about these 7 kids who are playing pretend. They're pretending they're, cowboys and Indians, and that they bounce between sides of it, but they're mainly playing as Apaches. I found it because it's on Edgar Wright's top 1,000 movies or 1,000 movies to watch. And I was like, what the fuck is this 1970s Apaches movie? I looked into it. It's from the same director who did The Long Good Friday. And boy, howdy, was that fucking amazing. It's filmed dreamlike, but it really, Jay and I were talking about it before we started recording. It's Final Destination for children.
It totally is. It's like they're playing around this farm equipment, and the farm equipment, it doesn't really come to life, but they're the most random accidents that
Yeah.
you're like, was that really an accident, or did they just get murdered by that baler?
It's 28 minutes of this group of kids just being picked off one by one. Like at first it goes on for like 5 minutes. They're just playing Apache, and then all of a sudden, this kid, they're like, he's on a tractor bed and he takes a dinger off and gets run over by the tractor. And then it's like from there on, it's just like boom, ba boom, like kid getting knocked off, and they keep playing. And you would think after like one or two they would stop doing that, but like no, they kept going until there was one left, and he like jumps on a tractor and accidentally like picks off the brake and like goes off the side of like a hill with it. It was just like Jesus, and it's like 1,200 children died in farming accidents last year, and it's like yeah.
If they play Apache like that, yeah. I first saw Apache because it was on a list. I want to say it might have been cracked.com, but it was on a list of basically what you said, like these, the most horrifying public service announcements. And you can find it on YouTube. And it is, I mean, looking back on it with today's eyes, it's hysterical. But if you consider, I mean, if you were a kid in the 70s and you saw this on TV,
Yeah.
whoa, nightmares.
I could just imagine, like, because it's also something that they would show in schools of like, hey kids, this is real serious. And then like there being like a couple of like monster kids in the background just be like, this is awesome. Whoa. Like it's well done, but it's
Yeah, no, I was at I think it was a found footage festival for Everything is Terrible, and they played that along with some other British and European PSAs. And man, that they do not fuck around with PSAs in Europe, because there's also like this German one, I think it's called Safety Last, and like
Oh, yeah.
it is about forklift safety, and like dudes get impaled with forklifts, and yeah, they really want to hammer that real accidents have real consequences in the workplace or around farms and stuff.
There's a whole series of commercials where like there's one where there's a chef working in the kitchen. She, and she's like, "Oh, hi, I'm getting married this weekend. It's gonna blah blah blah." And she's like, "But none of this is gonna happen because I'm about to have a terrible accident." And then she slips, and this pot of boiling oil spills all over her face. And you're watching this, and you're like, "I did not expect that turn."
oh man, I remember that one.
There's a whole series of them like that, where you watch these terrible accidents happen and you're like, whoa, and it starts off as just this normal, hi, meet this person.
There's also some like there's forklift PSAs where they actually hired like special effects makeup people, and like it's just like people just getting like skewered by forklifts and all this stuff. Like they wanted it to look as real as possible, and those are great compilations to watch too. Yeah, gnarly PSA videos are always a blast, but Apaches is like next level. Like it's so well shot, and it just comes off almost dreamlike. It definitely feels like a fever dream with like just children getting dingers and knocked off. Like there's one kid that drowns in poo. Like it's very ethereal. But yeah, that was a good time.
In terms of new releases, I don't think there's been a lot of new horror, but I did see The Rule of Jenny Penn at Alamo a couple days ago, and it's pretty intense, pretty solid. Have you guys heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Is it's going to be on Shudder, right?
Yeah, it's going to be on Shudder on the 28th. It's got like a short theatrical run right now. It's basically about Jeffrey Rush as this judge who has a stroke, and he ends up partially paralyzed, and he's put into this nursing care home, and he's a bit of a misanthrope, and he's kind of adjusting. But the thing is turns out at night, John Lithgow plays this seeming dementia patient who always has like a weird little baby doll puppet on his hand, and he loves to just physically and psychologically torment the other residents in this old folks facility, and so it becomes kind of a psychological game of wits because he wants to try and break Jeffrey Rush, and he's just tormenting him, and it's kind of a lot of back and forth, and it was very solid. The most surprising thing to me too is that it's set in New Zealand, so they both have New Zealand accents for the movie.
I love it when Lithgow does horror and creepy stuff. Like his De Palma films are some of my favorites.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely feels like he's evoking that.
I'm not going to be able to look at Lithgow anymore without seeing disappointed Lithgow face from the Oscars.
Yeah.
And why they didn't cut to that during Adrian Brody's speech, that's a missed opportunity right there. They definitely should have.
I thought you were going to say without picturing John Lithgow slapping Harry and the Hendersons. Get out of here. We don't want you no more.
No. What is hagsploitation called when they're not hags, when they're men?
Geezer-sploitation.
Geezer-sploitation.
Yeah, no, it was basically like Bubba Hotep, but instead of a soul-sucking mummy, it's a psycho John Lithgow with a puppet.
Sold.
Yeah.
Sold. That is a tagline to get me to go see that. Hell yeah.
Have either of you guys seen Mickey 17?
Not yet. Seeing it this weekend.
I'm kind of conflicted with it because it's a great movie. It's really well made. It's really good science fiction. There is a very thinly veiled Trump character in Mark Ruffalo, and it basically is about there are these colonization trips that go to some other planet, and Robert Pattinson's character Mickey, he volunteers to be on one of these because he needs to get away from Earth. He's in some trouble on Earth, and he volunteers. He doesn't know what he's volunteering for, but he volunteers to be an expendable. And when he volunteers that, everyone's like, really? An expendable? Did you read the contract? You know what you're doing? And basically what he is he's a guy who they save him on like a hard drive, and they make him do all of like the really hard missions, or they'll use him for like testing for like, gases or, diseases or anything. And when he dies, they just reprint his body out and download his memories back into him. So he can be reborn. And 17, this is the 17th time he came to life. And the problem arrives when they reprint him without being sure he's dead. So there's two of him. There's a Mickey 17 and a Mickey 18. So that, that kind of, supposedly when there are duplicates, they're supposed to exterminate them both. So that's the crux of the movie. Like I said, it's a good science fiction movie. I just it's not great. And the reason is I feel like they could have I wanted more of a statement, because it could have really made statements about like genetic testing or like lab rats or things like that, which it kind of goes toward, but not as hard as it should have. And the other thing is it gets towards the end, when they get to the planet that they're going to, there's obviously already a life form that lives there. They call them creepers. And of course, they want to take the planet for themselves. So it could have made stronger statements about imperialism. The only thing it really does, at one point, one character goes, "But we're the aliens," dun, dun, dun. And then that's all there was. So I guess I was a little disappointed that it didn't, the difference between good and great science fiction, I guess, is the message. But it's worth seeing. Just Robert Pattinson's amazing because there are subtleties between the different Mickeys, because each Mickey has the memories of the one before. So he still evolves as a character, and the subtleties between the different ones are pretty incredible. He's man, that dude, his post Twilight career has been just incredible.
He's trying to make up for it,
Well, him and Kristen Stewart both, and I think they're both doing a great job.
Yeah,
I think Twilight was their paycheck, and now they're doing what they want to do.
Hell yeah!
Which, hey, more power to them.
Have you guys heard of The Gorge?
Yeah, the new Scott Derrickson movie on Apple TV.
Yeah, we watched that the other day, and it's pretty good. It's Miles Teller and Anna Taylor-Joy play these two like elite snipers, different backgrounds. He's American, she's Russian, and there's this place where it's this gorge, and there's this mist above in it, but basically they're both stationed on a opposite side towers. The Russians control one side, the Americans control the other, and they're there to keep whatever is in the gorge from getting out.
Do they care if it goes to the other side? Could you say that they're different sides? I mean, are they kind of playing a game of like tug of war where like as long as it goes out on that side, we're fine?
No, it's more so like it's basically like two enemies are both like, no, whatever's down there is bad. Like we both have to like work on keeping it up. But you stay on your side, we stay on our side. No communication is supposed to happen between the two.
Okay, so they're cooperating. They're not okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's supposed to be like a tense cooperation. Like there's supposed to be no contact. But of course, Miles Teller and Anna Taylor-Joy are such pretty people. They start, seeing each other through the binoculars, and they start writing notes to each other, and they're playing chess across the gorge, and it's real cute. And oh my god, they're so falling for each other. It's the chemistry is kind of not there between the two.
But there's a gorge between them.
Mm-hmm.
How chemical can they get?
I mean, they try, but there's a certain point where like they go to have a date and stuff, and Miles Teller is like zip lining across the gorge, and then he falls into the gorge, and then she goes in after him. And once they're like in the gorge, it's pretty cool. Like the world, what's down there, they're basically like, because like the whole time they're like the mouth of hell is down there, and like so there's a lot of like inspiration from hell depictions of Baroque painters and stuff, and it's almost Lovecraftian, the horrors that are down there, and there's some cool stuff. But to be honest, by the time you're down there, you're like an hour into the movie, and like the crux of it, the falling in love relationship, I don't know. I definitely was sitting there going like, there's a big age difference here, and I don't know if I really buy Anna Taylor-Joy, who just has rich face as like a poor Russian sniper lady, it's so like, yeah, it is fun. There are some fun moments, but yeah, especially once you get into the gorge, and Sigourney Weaver plays, the military contract evil lady, which is always fun when she gets to, ham it up a bit. But having just recently watched Vamps again, I'm like, I needed Sigourney Weaver to tap into that more. But yeah, it's fine. It definitely, you know what it feels like? It feels like one of those like really expensive streaming movies, because that's what it is. It's an expensive streaming movie.
You don't say.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Their big problem is they should have had Anya Taylor-Joy do the zip lining, since she had experience from Furiosa.
Well, that's true.
Do the pole vaulting. But I mean, like it's fun. I mean, like I had a lot of fun with it. I just kind of wish I wish the chemistry, like, because half of it's a romantic movie, and the other half is like this almost cosmic horror stuff going on. And the cosmic horror stuff was cool. I just wish that type of horror was cool, but like I wish the love story worked a bit better for me. But
it can't all be hard eyes.
It can't.
Sadly.
I have a couple quick ones that are questionably horror, but I think everything we're talking about is questionably horror except for Jenny Penn.
Apaches?
A couple, yeah, actually, Apaches is horror. A couple weeks ago, I saw The Last Breath. Have you guys seen that?
No.
This is a story you probably heard. I've seen it, the true story, in a tons of those YouTube survival videos. It's basically about these immersion divers, the guys who basically live in the pressurized environment for like months on end. And while they're working, their ship's GPS gets damaged. So the ship like floats away, and these two guys one of them gets left at the bottom of the ocean, and they have to go back down and save him. And I tell you, this movie, first of all, it's only 90 minutes long, and it is the most tense 90 minutes, the most intense 90 minutes I think I've ever felt. And there's no fat on this movie. It is, I mean, the little bit of fat that you might consider fat are at the beginning and the end. But once they get to like the actual, operation and the rescue, there's no fat, because there can't be. This dude's stuck down there, and he only has 15 minutes of air. You can't afford any fat there. But yeah, The Last Breath, it's a pretty hardcore survival story. And the other thing I saw is the new Soderbergh movie, not Presence, Black Bag.
Oh, right.
Does that guy just not go home?
I'm wondering,
He doesn't
'cause
stop.
in the San Diego Film Critics Society, we have an award we give for body of work, and I was thinking before I saw Black Bag that I'm like, dude, Jack Quaid has got to get that between Novocaine and Companion. But now I'm thinking, dude, does Soderbergh have something else coming out this year? Because between Presence and Black Bag, but Black Bag is kind of like a spy thriller, but not like a born spy thriller. More like it's almost like a whodunit, because at the very beginning of it, Michael Fassbender he's meeting with his boss. His boss gives him a list of 5 names. Says one of these people is a traitor who has stolen this thing that is integral to British survival. And he's all, and by the way, one of the names not listed is your wife, which his wife is played by Cate Blanchett. So he has to find the traitor. Mm-hmm. And it is 4 of his coworkers who are both couples and his wife. So he starts with like a dinner party with the 6 of them, and he starts asking questions to try to root out who's lying and stuff. And it goes to some crazy places and keeps suspecting different people. And there's lots of cool twists in it. And that's another one that's like, there's no fat. I think it's also 90 minutes, which is surprising because it's the kind of movie that you can totally see going for 215, when you hear the premise. But it's a lean little, spy thriller.
Soderbergh's really good about keeping it lean. Especially
laser focused.
Yeah, especially in the last, when he's been on this releasing like multiple movies in a year, they've been really lean, like Kimi and those other ones.
And Presence is only like 80 minutes, isn't it? Or like 83 or 84.
Yeah.
Less than an hour and a half.
Yeah. So yeah, that's hey, I'm all for people making movies leaner. Like I say, I could have watched 3 Presences in the time it takes to watch one, The Brutalist.
Brutal.
Yeah. It's more not just a clever name. And now let's bring in this episode's special guest. This episode, we have Will Rogers, who is he does a little bit of everything, but the main thing that we've got him on for now is this book called Survive the Night, which we're going to let him explain it because it's a choose your own adventure coloring book. Mm-hmm. So first of all, how you doing, Will? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Can you explain to us basically what this project is?
Yeah, definitely. So Survive the Night, I look at it this way. It's a slasher choose your own adventure story. And I think we're all familiar with the idea of like the choose your own adventure, right? Like you get some semblance of the setup of a story. You've got to choose A or B. Oh my God. If you pick option A, turn to page 45 and oh my God, you died. So go back to that first page and pick a different option. Let's figure out how not to die at every turn. But on top of that, it's a graphic novel. So it's a visual choose your own adventure slasher, very gory, lots of splash pages of, people being ripped apart, eyes popping out of skulls, no spoilers. And then on top of that, it's a coloring book. So you can color in the panels. You can handle the gore. You can add extra gore if you want. Why not? It's all in good fun.
Make sure you got a good sharp red crayon.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of all things in one. It's a choose your own adventure, gory slasher comic coloring book. Got it?
Hell yeah, dude.
And I was curious, because it's just it covers so much ground in that being choose your adventure and a coloring book and a graphic novel. How did you come to the decision to kind of combine all those ideas in one and also make it for mature audiences? Because I remember doing a lot of choose your adventure books when I was a kid, and they got pretty hairy, but not nearly as gory as this.
Yeah, no, that's true. Listen, hey, I wish I could sit here and take credit for the entire concept. So I will. It was all me. No, it was this company, Insight Editions. They already do all of these sort of like more mature comic books, like coloring books for adult type concepts. And so I've got enough of a history in, being a horror writer, and a friend of mine suggested to the company that Will Rogers might be a good fit because they were interested in doing something that was like pretty gory. But then I will say, once we linked up together and we started batting around concepts, I really got into the notion of like, all right, writing a coloring book. I'd never considered that before. I never thought of that before. Choose your own adventure is cool. I've never done that either. That sounds daunting and challenging. And then the more that we were talking about it, I was like, what if it functioned more and more like a graphic novel too, so that you've got panels on each page, so you can really have some time for the story to develop and have some characters, drop in some fun horror references and stuff. I definitely tried to dial up the comic book angle a bit, but they already had this horror coloring book pretty baked by the time they came to me. I just wrote the story.
That's awesome. I've always been a big fan of Choose Your Own Adventures, especially as a kid. And recently, Star Trek put out Warp Your Own Way with Lower Decks. And so I'm getting back into it. So you caught me at a perfect time to get into this. But one of the things I found was with Choose Your Own Adventures, the going back and forth gets a little complicated if you don't have 5 or 6 bookmarks. And so I love this coloring concept because I'm like, oh shit, now I know which way I actually did because I'm coloring in it as I go. And so it's like helping me navigate it a bit better.
Absolutely. Yeah, you kind of mark your. That's interesting. I didn't even really consider that, to be honest. But yeah, you are sort of marking your progress. I will also say, for the ease of like navigating the book, when you hit a dead end, it should explicitly say like, go back to this exact page, so that there's less hunting and pecking, that kind of thing.
I love that. Thank you for that.
Yeah. That's what Choose Your Own Adventure never did.
Yeah, I remember with Choose Your Own Adventures, like you have as much fun with them as you can, and then you inevitably burn out or something. I think we really struck a good chord of like, no, take it at your own pace, have a good time with it, and it gives you all the tools that you should need to be able to, go forward, go back, make a new choice, all of that.
We're going a little out of order than we normally go, because normally I like to start with the origin story, the backgrounds, but I think we needed a good overview of what this project is before we get any further.
Yeah.
But how did you get into because you're a writer, a horror writer? How did you get into that? What was the point in your life when you're like, I want to do this?
It's one of those things where there are sort of two answers to the question. The like most precious one is that I remember being a kid writing books for myself and like binding them with cardboard. You know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, my brain, I just always sort of gravitated to stories, and I would rip off stories. I wrote, like a kid's version of, Night of the Dummy from Goosebumps, where it was just a teddy bear that comes to life. Oh, how original. But so to some degree, it feels like I've always been doing this. But when I really sort of applied myself and got more serious about because I've always wanted to be a writer. But when I went, you know what? I think the only thing I really care about is horror. It was probably a good decade ago or more. And I literally just started by being like, well, I'd gotten into podcasting by that point already. I've been a podcaster as well for, like 13, 14 years. And at a certain point in doing all these podcasts, I was loving the instant gratification of have a conversation. You can have that on the internet in 5 seconds. And then I started to realize that's kind of at odds with the profession that I say I want of being a writer, which is a slow process. Like so much, they're in some ways totally antithetical. Podcasting, performing, instant gratification. Writing, delayed gratification, private. You have to sit in a room and write and fill an empty page. And about a decade ago or something, I was like, what if I just combine the two? And I just started writing stuff and releasing it online. And it feels like almost the second that I did that, a decent handful of people took notice of my work. And before I knew it, I was getting sort of horror gigs. And I could not be happier being in the horror genre and writing. It's the thing I love the most.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the best genre, obviously, as it's our
Honestly,
stance at least.
Yeah, I kind of think it is. I've had conversations with people before about if you want to go see a movie, if I'm going to see a comedy, I kind of know what I'm gonna get. If I'm going to go see some Oppenheimer or something, I sort of know what I'm going to get. If I'm going to go see a horror movie, I might be laughing during it. I might be, thinking about, incredible life and death implications. I might just be having a gory, like, good time. I might be turning my brain off, whatever. But to me, the horror genre has more degrees of interest to me than a lot of other genres. The horror genre sort of encompasses everything, in my opinion. And the things that I remember most from childhood, even like the kids' movies that I was watching, like I've got kids now, and going back and revisiting some of those early Disney movies and stuff, like you really can't overstate the importance of how scary a lot of those movies are. Like the things that you remember most from your childhood is the scary stuff. And it's partly just because, one, it's probably some level of trauma. but two, I think it's almost like this human evolution thing of like, we're all afraid of everything. Embracing the horror genre, to me, has always meant sort of like continually evolving and bettering myself and inoculating myself against the real world horrors out there.
Tell them Large Marge sent you. How many of us got traumatized by that? That was a Pee Wee Herman movie.
Totally. Yeah.
And even when you do know what you're in for, you still don't know. Have you seen Hard Eyes?
No, I have not yet. No.
Okay. Hard Eyes is the perfect blend of romantic comedy and slasher. And even knowing those two genres and you know what you're going to get, it is still just the most fun.
Yeah, there's a chocolate and peanut butter thing that for me, and everything is subjective, but for me, I get it more when the movie starts as a horror and I'm surprised by all the other, layers of other genres that appear in it. Yeah.
And on Survive the Night, I was wondering if there were any particular movies or stories that were influences on writing it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think anybody will be shocked by several references that are, particularly people that might be familiar with my work. I have a tendency to reference like the same handful of things that I just obsess over and over and over. So the bare premise of this story of Survive the Night, because for it to be a choose your own adventure story, there needs to be like a real like mechanism that gets the plot in order. It's this group of friends who go to a cabin by a lake. And one of them, the sort of like main character that you're trying to help survive the night, Kristen, is 1 year prior, her brother, Bobby, had been killed. And so are these murders right now connected to that? Or is it just happenstance? Even some of that, like the tropes of horror, I really enjoy reusing because I think that they're comforting in a way. Mm-hmm. And even the environment of being by the lake is very, Friday the 13th. The design of the killer is very familiar to other masked killers. Even the names, little things I think that horror fans will enjoy. I think like you'll be able to pick up when I reference things like Scream in the book. And a lot of it's even in the art as well. Like but yeah, I'm totally a product of my horror obsessions, and there are references throughout.
Awesome. It's reminding me a lot of, do you remember, they did a remaster of it not too long ago. Is it not Night Watch? The horror choose your scenario game where they did live action recording.
Yes. Yes, what is that called? And it was like banned, but for some reason it's like
I want to say Night Watch. Was it?
It's not Night Watch. I have it on my PlayStation. What is it?
Yeah, I got it on the Switch.
Like that.
That's gonna bother me.
It's like an FMV.
Night Trap. Yeah.
And it was a part of the congressional hearings where it was that and Mortal Kombat, and they're like, we don't even have blood. It's people falling through trapdoors. What do you mean?
Yeah, what's the problem? But yeah, I think there's like a coziness to a certain type of horror. And I think for this book in particular, I wanted to nail that like kind of like comforting, cozy horror vibe. As much as it is like, again, literally blood spurting, like heads getting crushed, like big splash pages for you to discover mayhem and gore. And yet I sit here and I'm like, it's so cozy.
Oh, man. I can't wait to see like how people are coloring it in too, because there's that there's these clips because Invincible, it's a superhero show. It's very bloody, but in China they have to censor it. So what they did was instead of red blood, they made it white. And so there's this one particular shot of Battle Beast, and if you know anything about Battle Beast, he really loves fighting, and you can imagine what's being referenced with those gifts, but it'll be interesting to see if people do blue or green or red and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Honestly, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Who's to stop you?
That's kind of another question. Is there a way, because everybody's going to color this differently? Do you have like any kind of like a website or somewhere where people can kind of like share their work of your work, their interpretation of your work? Is there anything like that in the works? Or
that's a great idea.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
such a good idea. I'm going to steal it immediately.
I was going to say you can have that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. Everybody out there, if you get the book, if you enjoy it, if you color it in an interesting way that you want to show off, tag me at the Myth Traveler.
Oh, you're gonna get some really bad coloring in the out of the lines for me in that case.
Perfect. I want that
terrible.
Yeah, or like I'm also thinking like that kind of famous strong bad email from Homestar Runner where he made his own coloring book and he just edited a coloring book. So like some kids are playing in the sand. It's like Geraldine has buried Bob in the sand up to his neck. He has only an hour to live.
I'm going to do every page. I'm going to color every page on a different drug.
Oh.
Just kidding.
That's an art piece. Then you can like.
I've been sober for almost 13 years, so no, that's a joke.
Okay, yeah, give that a pass then.
I was about to say that doesn't sound like a you challenge, Jay. That sounds like somebody else's.
It is not.
Awesome. And so you have this book, and it's when this episode airs, it'll be coming out the next day. What other projects do you have in the works?
Wow. I've got, so I always have new episodes of my podcast, Guide to the Unknown, coming out. It's a show that I host with my sister, also named Kristen. I named the protagonist of the book who dies over and over after my beloved sister.
Perfect.
Prevent my sister from dying. And have a good time coloring in the pages when she does. But so Guide to the Unknown, we're always talking about, urban legends and monsters, and that comes out every single Friday. And that's the project that I always think of first, that I sort of like, it's my stable, my like hang my hat on.
You are speaking my language. I'm subscribing as soon as we're done here.
Oh, so I have such a good time.
Urban legends, folk tales, cryptids. That's me.
Yes. I always say if it's even remotely spooky, we'll talk about it because I never want to stop doing the show ever. But I also have a lot of fun stuff out there right this second. I wrote a podcast, an audio drama podcast called Blackwood. It's a 6-part series, very Blair Witch inspired, about kids in a small town, sort of dealing with this local urban legend, very Jersey Devil, very Mothman. He's called the Blackwood Bugman. And I just reacquired the rights to that show, so I'm very interested in exploring, like, continuing the story on my own.
Awesome. Where can you find that? And you said you reacquired the rights. Can you find what you've already done? That 6-part?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is it like on all the podcast apps?
It is. Yeah. If you just look up Blackwood, you'll find it. The logo is a big spooky tree.
I'm taking down a list of all these things I need to subscribe to, because that sounds like it's up my alley too.
I honestly, like, I try to strike a chord where, like, I like doing things that are just like fun or really like scratch kind of like, I always call that one sort of like a horror adventure series, like it's just like, not that I ever would claim that I would like to try to reinvent the wheel someday, but I also just have these things that I love and feel are just like so comforting. And so Blackwood is very like, it's basically my obsession with Blair Witch sort of like manifested as my own kind of characters mixed with my own neuroses and oddities and all that stuff. I've got a number of stories on the No Sleep podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've got a TV series that's coming out this year on Screambox that I can't really say much more about, but I'm very excited when I can.
Awesome.
And an audio drama that I directed should be coming out now at probably around October this year. And it's inspired by a pretty cult graphic novel where it's, basically monsters like the familiar Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman versus Nazis. And so the Nazis all end up getting, ripped apart, bludgeoned by the spoiler alert, but the monsters win. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
We always love and will support any Nazi killing fiction and projects out there. We're very pro punching Nazis on this.
Yeah,
podcast.
that project in particular, the longer it's gone on, the more I'm like, you know what? Actually, I've come back all the way back around to be like, this is more timely than ever. The monsters win.
We're very supportive. Sisu, Wrath of Becky, any
Creature
movie
Commandos.
Any movie where Nazis die, we're in.
Yeah, totally.
Here's the question: Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, pro or con? Are you for or against?
Ooh, do I have to just make the statement, or can I qualify?
No. Well, let me preface this by saying I love it. I think it's an amazing movie, and I think it's better because it's a sequel to the hype, not the movie itself. So
sure,
just so you know that the question is kind of loaded because your answer, my entire image of you is going to depend on your answer, but no pressure.
So if I just simply say that it's the second best Blair Witch movie, are we satisfied?
I'm good with that.
I have we've talked at like to the point that my audience, the Guide to the Unknown audience, has gone like, can you guys stop talking about Blair Witch? We literally got that. We literally got somebody that was like, you got to stop doing this. Because I don't know if I'm convinced that like 99% of people don't know that the Blair Witch movies are just the tip of the iceberg of like books and comics and video games and lore. So we have painstakingly gone through almost everything at this point, to the point that I think literally if you go to my website is scaryfun.fun. If you go to scaryfun.fun/Blair Witch, I think you get like a bunch of episodes where we go crazy on that franchise.
I don't think you can fully appreciate the Blair Witch Project without having been around when it came out, in 1999, because you could experience, like you said, everything below the surface. Because there was so much lore and mythology, there's never going to be another Blair Witch Project.
No,
there's never you're never going to be able to fool the public like that, because also at the time, everyone thought it was real. I mean, if you went to blairwitch.com, it was real, but then you go to the Haxon website and they would lift the curtain and they would let you know it wasn't. But yeah, you would have to go to the chat rooms. You'd have to do your own work. You'd have to watch the Sci-Fi Channel special, to get all the mythology. And it's brilliant. I mean, I don't think any people who don't dive into that mythology truly appreciate how great the movie itself is.
I couldn't agree more. And on top of that, I also consider the Blair Witch entire franchise as being like a masterclass in letting a story world expand. Mm-hmm. I love the idea that the feature film is just a part of the bigger fabric of that world. I'm very obsessed with that concept of like, even with Blackwood, we ended up producing some like bonus material images that sort of augment listening to the show. I love that. I'm obsessed with it. It would be wonderful to just be like, here's the project that I'm going to tackle for like the rest of my life, and just like J.R.R. Tolkien with Lord of the Rings and making like the Silmarillion or whatever forever. Just like continue to flesh out the world. If anything, it's like a travesty that it has not continued under the sort of like guidance of the original creators. Yeah. Having said that, if I can brag for a minute,
please,
so not used to
brag away.
We love bragging.
Especially about
I actually got to contribute to the franchise.
Nice.
I don't think many people even know about it, but there was a tabletop game. Basically, like every month, this company would send you the latest episode of an ongoing Blair Witch story for about a year. There were like 12 episodes, as we called them, 12 boxes of this ongoing story. And I was one of the writers. I directed not all, but a lot of the media for the game and stuff. So technically, I've contributed to the Blair Witch world.
Well,
still counts.
That's not even a technicality.
Yeah, true. I'm always I think I hedge my bets on that one because I'm like, but I'm not Eduardo Sanchez. I'm not Dan Myrick. I'm not any of the originals,
But I mean, still, the Hunt a Killer series that you're talking about with the gaming thing is still building on that mythos, building out that world and all that. And so, as the Blair Witch expert on the panel right now, I have to ask: the video game. I started it. I got like I think a quarter or halfway through. Should I keep going?
You're talking about the most recent video game, the 2019.
Yeah, the PS4 one is what I got.
What made you stop?
ADHD. Okay. It happens with video games. Like every time someone's like, "Did you play Red Dead 2?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got like 8 hours into it." They're like, "You only got 8 hours into it?" I'm like, "ADHD. I got into other things. I forgot some of the controls. Tried to get back into it. Couldn't. I forgot where I was in the story. It happens all the time."
I would argue you could probably watch some videos online.
Okay.
I think it's like the 2019 game for my money is kind of like, what if Blair Witch was really just kind of a Silent Hill side story? If you like could do tiers of canon, it's not even touching that like top primary canon, in my opinion. But yeah, I've got, oh boy, do I have thoughts about that game. I'm actually like on the precipice of diving back into that game to do a little research to cover it on the show. And I'm like a little anxious about having to go back in.
Gotcha.
I was not necessarily the biggest fan of the game.
No, and I always find it funny. Like me not finishing a video game is the same argument as like, wait, you fell asleep during the movie, so it's bad. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with the quality. It's just I was just tired. I just have ADHD.
It's a me thing. I think you could watch videos and get it.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh, Until Dawn must be so scary if you've never finished it. It's no, literally, I keep ADHDing out, so I have 5 different saves because I keep forgetting where I am, what I'm doing, what's going on. So I restart it.
But I get that.
I always kill the squirrel, though. I always want to see what nature's going to do to me. Much to the chagrin of my partner, who was genuinely shocked the first time I played. They were like, "You had no hesitation shooting that squirrel." I'm like, "Well, I figured it was going to cause some like bad stuff, and like it's a horror thing. I want to see everyone die horribly."
It's also a digital squirrel.
Yeah, it's a digital squirrel.
It's different if I walk out the front door and suddenly shoot a squirrel. We have a lot to talk about, and I get it.
No, I'm
digital
feeding them.
Squirrel. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm running over bunnies in Red Dead Redemption on my horse. It's all right. It's okay.
I remember I was teaching my wife how to play Grand Theft Auto once. This is like years and years and years ago. It might have been Grand Theft Auto 3. I don't even, one of the real old ones. But and I was showing her how you can walk up and just punch people. And she's playing and she goes up to a guy in a suit. And I'm all, not that guy. And she punches him. And those are the mafia guys. So he, of course, pulls out a gun and
there are repercussions. You got to know who to punch.
Yeah.
Always punch down in Grand Theft Auto.
You don't punch cops or guys in suits. Everybody else is fair game.
Oh, man. I remember my grandparents walked in on us trying to play Grand Theft Auto. And so it was suddenly like turned into a driving simulator and accidentally ran over someone. And they're like, "You just killed someone. How could you do that?" And they're like, "Oh, they were a prostitute. It's fine, I guess, right?" And they're like, "No, it's a living being. It's a video game, Grandma. Why did they allow you to kill people?" And it's like, this isn't even scratching the surface of the violence of this.
You really want to see something, Grandma?
Yeah.
Do some missions. Show you a good time.
And back on Blair Witch, also because we're fans here, have you seen the Scooby-Doo project?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That is like a work of art. Genuinely, like, that was a labor of love for the folks who made that. I am so impressed. Like, doing the sort of like cell animation on top of live footage to put Scooby-Doo in the woods and running through the house. I'm kind of amazed that they never tried to do anything similar with that animation in live action, kind of like that. Because I actually also just genuinely thought it was cool.
Yeah. So many Scooby-Doo projects out there. I'm surprised they haven't tried to like expand on that more outside of just like, because it was just supposed to be commercials for Scooby-Doo coming to Cartoon Network finally. And then
that's right.
They took the assignment.
Are you saying you want Book of Shaggy? Scooby-Doo project too. Someone write it. There you go.
There's our pitch.
Listen,
Bring somebody called Cartoon Network.
Yeah, you lean into Shaggy as a god mythos that the internet has created.
Oh, jeez.
oh my God.
Oh, yep. All right. Well, Will, thanks for joining us today. This come back anytime. We will talk at length about Blair Witch Project. We will talk about, I will talk at length about cryptids, urban legends, anything spooky. So yeah, thank you for joining us. What socials you got? So people, any of the stuff that you couldn't talk about that you want to, how can they find out about that?
Yeah, follow me at The Myth Traveler. I'm on Blue Sky, Instagram, I guess Facebook technically. Also follow at GTTU Pod. That's the Guide to the Unknown podcast, which is everywhere. It's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. But I always try to post when I've got new things that are coming out. I always have a number of irons in the fire. I've got really fun stuff coming out this year for sure. I love doing this. It's harder to get me to stop talking. This was a blast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This is great. This is a great interview. And everybody go and check out Survive the Night by Will Rogers, a choose your own adventure coloring book. Yeah. And you don't have to color before you turn the page, but it might be more fun that way. As for us, our theme song is by Restless Spirit. So check them out. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher. So go check him out. And you can find us on all the socials at Ion Horror or at iHorror.com, which is the website we call home. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correa.
And I'm Will Rogers. Survive the night.
Keep your eye on horror.